Welcome to Out of the Rough. I'm Fred Arnold, and in this show we want to highlight opportunities and solutions to help get you out of the rough and into success, both personally and professionally. In these tough economic times, I'm going to provide you practical solutions to many of today's challenges. And in this show, we're calling it the inaugural show of the Out of the Rough Provisors Edition, and my first guest is Steve Ragow. Did I get that right? Yep, pronounce that right. And he's from TRCG Advisors. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fred.
And you specialize in serving manufacturing and distribution industries and helping them as a consultant. One of the things I want to talk about, which is one of the items that you specialize in, and we want to get the information out, is on tax credits. Okay. Free money.
Yeah, it's good money. Okay. There are a number of different kinds of tax credits out there that companies like ours specialize in. We specialize in one unique area called the Research and Development Tax Credit. And it focuses on manufacturing companies, high-tech companies, companies that are involved in creating something new or taking something that exists but revising it, vastly improving it. As long as it's done in the U.S., and I'm not talking about produced in the U.S., as long as the design, testing, and development, the R&D effort is done in the U.S., those companies could have a tremendous credit available to them. I would tell companies that it's something they should look at. There are a lot of stringent requirements. Not everybody could qualify, and even if they do qualify, they might not do enough work to get money back. But there are a lot of companies that I've run across that are leaving money on the table because they're just not looking into it or aware of it.
Yeah, what's scary is when you don't know, you don't know. Right. When you don't know, you're in trouble.
That's correct.
When you know you don't know, then you're okay. Right. And that's certainly when it comes to tax credits and being aware of that.
And I would tell people that it's something that's worth looking into. There are a lot of companies who will do it that will tell them they will review the situation up front, basically at no cost, to tell them whether there is something worth pursuing or not. So that it's not costing them anything to find out if they do qualify and get something back. But I've seen companies leave hundreds of thousands of dollars out there because they just weren't aware.
Yeah, they didn't know. Let's talk about another thing you specialize in, that is on tax strategies around the import business.
The export business.
Oh, export business. Yeah, thank you.
That's something that's very interesting because I believe it was in the 90s when the World Trade Group, there was a lot of discussion about tax policies conflicting between the U.S. and the international market. And we did away with a lot of our tax strategy work, or a lot of our tax policies. But there was one that did not go away, but a lot of people thought it did, and really for years left it unknown. And there is essentially, for a company that manufactures in the U.S. and sells their product internationally, and again, I'll keep it very simple at this moment, half of their profits on their international sales can be treated as a dividend and taxed at a dividend rate of 15% instead of the normal 35% tax rate. You're looking at a nice strategy for companies who are growing exports, and I am sitting on the board now with the International Trade Committee, and there's a lot of effort nationally to push companies to grow exports. And companies like that are growing exports, finding good market overseas, this is a strategy. It's a tremendous opportunity for them to save a considerable portion of their funds. Exporting
is great because it brings jobs here, and we're shipping goods and services elsewhere.
That's what the focus is behind that.
Yeah, it's all about jobs to get us back in these tough economic times. Let's talk about something you also specialize in, that is business procedure reviews. Expand upon that.
Well, that's a really it's a good area to talk about. When I'm doing a lot of the reviews on companies on the tax strategies, it becomes very apparent that they either operate very efficiently or they don't. And I'm not going to talk about technology as being the wherewithal magical solution, because it is not. Usually technology, in my mind, and I got involved with it way back when, before PC, so I've been involved heavily through a lot of evolution. But technology works well when you have a lot of volume, but you have good procedures in place, and you're operating efficiently. When you're operating inefficiently, all you're going to do is mimic that and magnify it by the growth in volume. And I have seen companies who had a tremendous product, had good opportunity to make money, and after a certain point they hit a brick wall and they didn't know why. There was a lot of internal fighting and confusion. There were customers getting angry. And it was not because of mistakes people were making. It was they didn't know how to run their business. They didn't know how everything needed to interact. And as they kept growing, that changes continuously. A procedure you put in place when you're a startup company, you get to 10, 15 million, it changes. You get to 50 million, you have a lot more people, it changes. And companies do not pay attention to that like they should. And all of a sudden, a wonderful, growing, highlight company all of a sudden becomes, what happened to them? Why are they getting so inefficient? Why are their products' quality dropping? It's because they're not paying attention to the process.
And a lot of times the consultants we have when we're first starting our business are maybe not the ones to take us to the next level, and hopefully they know that and bring in experts that can take you to the next level.
They should, and I would recommend to a company that periodically they do have an outside view of what's going on, because sometimes what we found in a company, there's usually a group of people that are outspoken, and then there are a group of people that are timid. And sometimes some of those timid, shy people are the ones with the ideas, and they're afraid to speak out. Yeah. And sometimes, even if it's once every couple of years, if a company says, let an outsider come in, and let's have a view of what's going on, that comes to the surface, and it helps a company get over a couple of hurdles. And I've seen companies make magnificent strides in growth by simple changes they've made in business practices.
We have a couple minutes. I want to throw a little bit of curveball at you. What are some of the biggest gaps or biggest challenges businesses have had in the past, and easy ways to get through the gap or challenges they've had? What are some of the biggest ones you've seen?
Well, the biggest ones in my mind, well, obviously, if a company was growing, sometimes financing was a gap. Well, you have to look for financing. But what happens with a bank, when you go to your bank for financing, they look at certain ratios, and again, it gets back to business practices. If you have a sloppy way of capturing data and you can't justify, the bank's going to look at the numbers, they don't make sense. Right. And I went through it as a CFO and CEO of a company, but I was consulting and took over one, and I got hit with that right away, and we had to correct it. Another gap is sometimes companies don't want to spend money in technology when it will help. They'll look at it and say, well, nothing seems to be broken, I can keep doing this. Right. But they're at a point where they could grow in tremendous volume, but they can't keep adding. I mean, you want to keep jobs, you want to offer jobs, but you can't double and triple your salary costs and your space costs to increase production. You have to use some technology in some areas. I would say the two biggest gaps are they prepared to get funding, and are they aware of when and the right way to use technology? Yeah,
yeah. And be prepared, because technology makes employees much more efficient, makes the process much more efficient, and makes it so you can have more market share.
Correct.
And if you have more market share, you can hire more people.
Correct. As long as your business practices are right to begin with, you can do that. And that's where we come back full circle.
I love it. I love it. So, Steve, how can those that want to reach you, how can they contact you?
The website is www.trcgadvisors.com.
One more time?
www.trcgadvisors.com.
Great. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for being a great member of Provisors.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Ragow with TRCG Provisors. We're going to jump to a quick break, but when we come back, we got Gary Sanger, one of the leaders here with Provisors, and we're going to talk about ways in which you can grow your business through effective networking. We'll be right back.